Wait, it just looks so fucking awesome! Oh my god, yes, I gotta go play with the fucking Godzilla toys at Godzilla! Holy shit, he just... Oh, the Mothra's in the trailer, and he's just like... Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, I bet that's what it's gonna be about. Godzilla raids again, pretty boring, but it's still freaking awesome, because Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, King Kong vs. Godzilla, and then Godzilla 2000. I think it's probably my most anticipated film of next year, so... It's gotta be awesome. So, I was originally gonna open this video with me geeking out over Godzilla, because the movie's finally here, and, you know, I was gonna grab my movies and throw them all over the floor and get my action figures and stuff. But, I mean, I just got out watching the movie, and this didn't go as expected because I was kind of disappointed in it. Now, I like to try to reach out this review to both general audiences and, of course, Godzilla fans. And because, I mean, there's a lot I have to say. I mean, I'm disappointed for a couple of reasons. Like, I'm not just disappointed in this movie as just a guy who loves movies in general, but I'm also disappointed as a Godzilla fan too. So I'm going to review this movie in two different perspectives. I'm going to review this as a guy who loves movies, or, you know, just talk about it as a film, you know, how it was edited, acted, all that stuff. But also I'm going to review this movie as a Godzilla fan, because I think Godzilla is kind of one of those, because technically if you look at Godzilla, with all their movies, except for maybe the original and Shin-Godzilla, most Godzilla movies are kind of the same. Like, they have kind of their structure where Godzilla's either on his own or fighting monsters, and usually those are the most entertaining parts, but, you know, the worst parts are definitely the human characters. I mean, not all Godzilla movies have terrible human characters, but most of them, they're just pretty boring, and they're just there to explain what happens, which is something to expect going into this movie as a Godzilla fan. But then there's something about the writing that just went way too far for me in some areas. I might as well talk about this movie as a Godzilla fan first. I'm also going to go into spoilers with this movie too, so if you don't want to hear any like moments that'll ruin the movie for you, you know, just click off the video. Or if you've seen it and you don't care, you could just continue on. Anyways, so as a Godzilla fan, King of the Monsters, it's actually fine. It's fine as a Godzilla fan. There's some entertaining bits here and there. There's some cool stuff, but I don't even think some of the moments and some of the monster battles don't really compare to some other Godzilla movies. I mean, I'll point out the stuff that I like first as a Godzilla fan. I liked some of the world building with Godzilla and the monsters. I like the idea that, you know, in the first Godzilla movie, the monsters are kind of treated as like animals, like how the Mutos are trying to smash, literally, just to breed their population to take over the Earth, and then Godzilla has to stop that. And Godzilla's treated as a good guy. Not necessarily a good guy, but sort of like an anti-hero. Which, I have nothing against that, because Godzilla has done that before. He's like a force of nature, or he's something there to kind of prevent like evil monsters, so I'm okay with that. And they kind of add more to him where he's like a titan god or something like that, which I think that's kind of cool. And I also like the idea that King Ghidorah, he doesn't necessarily control monsters, but there's like this animal kingdom feel where like he's on top of the food chain, everybody bows down to him, even Rodan fucking bows down to him like he's a king. Almost kind of like Lion King. In fact, if you think about the structure of this movie, it's almost kind of like Lion King, where, you know, Godzilla is fighting King Ghidorah, but then he loses, and then he just kind of backs off for a little while, and then of course he gets like his big power upgrade, and then he comes in to fight King Ghidorah, and then he kind of takes over as like King of the Monsters, which is, of course, that's what this movie's called. I guess that's kind of cool. I like the world building with that. The monsters, of course, they're cool. Godzilla's kind of given an upgrade, especially when he turns bigger. He does. Nothing too much of a big difference, but I mean, hey, he's bigger. I mean, a bigger Godzilla is cool. I like Mothra. I don't really have too much to say about her. I think she's okay. Her design, in a concept, it looks really cool, but in the movie she was kind of hard to see, which I'll kind of get into that later. Rodan's pretty cool too. I like his design. I like how he looked very fiery, like a fire Rodan from Mechagodzilla 2. And King Ghidorah, of course, is awesome. I mean, I like the idea. Like I said, he's the top of the food chain, being the king of monsters. But also, I like how he can regenerate his head. I don't think that's ever been done in any Godzilla movies. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of expected too, since he's an alien. The fights, I have real mixed feelings about. Because in some cases, they should be really cool. And there are some really great memorable moments. Like Mothra stabbing Rodan. That was really cool. Or Godzilla going up against King Ghidorah. That was really cool too. In fact, I like how he bites his head off. But this kind of goes with some of my issues with the movie in general. The fight scenes, they're really hard to see. I mean, it pretty much shares the same problem as the first Godzilla movie, where that movie, when Godzilla fights the Muto monsters at the end, it was kind of easy to see in theaters, but if you watch it at home or during the day, you can barely see what's happening. And I think this movie took it way too far and made it worse, where even in theaters, I couldn't tell what was going on. Like I've mentioned in my Comic-Con trailer review where I said that the cinematography looked really good. And yeah, there are definitely some cool shots here and there. But goddamn, I hate it when movies, they think, oh yeah, we gotta make sure this movie takes place at night. So we gotta make it like dark so we can tell people that, oh yeah, this takes place at night. But there's so many different ways that you can do it that, you know, we can actually see what happens. Like this is the same issue I have with like Brave, the Long Night episode from Game of Thrones, and Solo even has this problem too. Like, what is with filmmakers wanting to make their movies so dark that we can't see it? I mean, I guess if you watch in theaters, fine, because, you know, you're in a dark theater, but you also want your movie to be rewatched, right? And especially if your movie's being rewatched during the day, and when you can barely see what's happening, it kind of takes away the enjoyment. That's the key thing about making action scenes. Your eyes, it's got to see what's going on. Like seriously, get some fire in that town. Get some like highlights or silhouettes or something, or even just get like moonlight light to shine on the monsters, because I can't tell what they look like. And King Ghidorah looks really bad in this movie sometimes, where in the day he'll look really cool, and I noticed that with lots of ads and the advertisements for King Ghidorah, whenever they show posters of him, like he's all in gold, right? There's even like action figures where he's in gold. In this movie, his color doesn't pop. I mean, sure, his lightning beam does. Like you could see like the yellow beams from the sky and stuff, but like he is just so dark that you just can't tell. Sometimes you just can't tell what he looks like. And sometimes I'm fine with that with a couple shots, but most of the times you could barely see him. Like, for the love of God, for the next Godzilla, like Godzilla vs. King Kong movie, to Adam Wingard, please don't shoot this movie in the dark. Can we just have the fights take place during the day? So yeah, I think that's just kind of all I have to say as a Godzilla fan. I mean, it was fine. Oh yeah, there's also, I forgot to mention, there's also new monsters included, which is another thing I kind of like, where most of the new monsters are, like at first I thought they were just going to be like old monsters that we recognize, like the Spider Monster, Kumonga, or Kamakris, or Biollante. And that's when I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be a little bit of fan service, like, okay, we're going to recognize these monsters. But actually, they were new. Like, there's this woolly mammoth monster that looks really cool. Like, honestly, I want to see a Godzilla fight between him and this woolly mammoth creature. I mean, I guess that's kind of cool. I mean, I like to see more movies of Godzilla going up against those new monsters. And I guess that's the thing. If you're a Godzilla fan, I think you'll like it just fine. For me personally, as a Godzilla fan, like, I didn't mind it. This is one of those movies I would have to watch again on Blu-ray, because there's a lot of scenes I have to skip to get to the good action bits, because most of the other stuff in this movie is kind of unwatchable. And this kind of leaned towards transition to how I feel about the movie.
What? I just changed location? And how did I change my wardrobe? Well, that's just because I technically finished filming the video, and I noticed that there were a couple things I forgot to... Somebody is turning on their lawnmower. Fucking great. Okay, I think it's over. So I forgot to mention a couple of things. One of them is being the oxygen destroyer. It actually is referenced and used in this movie, but I think it's kind of a waste because in the previous two Godzilla movies, the oxygen destroyer was kind of effective to Godzilla. Like, it can actually kill him. And of course, it was made a big deal in the original because Dr. Sarazawa in the original movie, it was kind of like the new atomic bomb, and he doesn't want to release it to the public because people will probably use it for many wrong different reasons, and that's kind of why he kills himself in the original film. And then it was even used in Godzilla vs. Destroyer, because Destroyer is kind of mixed with the Oxygen Destroyer, which kind of explains why Destroyer can actually beat Godzilla. But the way how it was used in this movie was just so wasteful, because, like, if you're going to mention the Oxygen Destroyer, it should be something effective where he can kill Godzilla. And it doesn't even kill Godzilla. It just, like, barely harms him and into a hideout. And that's it. Like, really? That's kind of a waste of a fan service reference. Oh, by the way, in case if you're wondering what kind of location I'm in, I'm hanging out with friends. Bunnies. Hi, this is Lol. Maybe I should just make this review as, meet my bunnies.
Unfortunately, I kind of agree with critics when it comes to this movie. I mean, most of the issues with this movie is just, like, my biggest issue with this movie is actually mostly just the human characters, which, you know, as a Godzilla fan, this is something, you know, we shouldn't be bothered about. The reason why the human characters are not interesting in the other Godzilla movies is because they're boring, and also they're just kind of there to give exposition and, you know, just tell us what's going on during the fight. And then they just watch the fight. That's about it. I mean, sure, they take up most of the movies for most of these Godzilla movies, but, I mean, like, whatever. It wouldn't bother us unless if the fight scenes are really good. I mean, like I said, I have really mixed feelings with the fight scenes in general, but the human characters in this movie, oh my god, they're bad. I mean, really, really bad. Like, maybe 1998 movie bad. Oh my goodness. Some of them are completely unrelatable, and they make so much stupid decisions where I was just like, why? Like, you know that lady from Scary Movie where it was parodying loud movie talkers, and then she was questioning about the logic of the movie? I was about to become that lady, just pointing out, why are they doing this? Most of the human characters take up most of the movie, and that kind of sucks. I mean, some people say that, you know, with the comparison with this movie and the last Godzilla movie, they said the Gareth Edwards one didn't have that much monster battles, but there's too much human stuff. And in this, they say there's more monster battles and less humans. Like, yes, there's more monster battles than the last movie. But I would argue there's about as much human characters as the first movie, and they suck. I don't like any of them. They just... Even the ones I liked from the previous movie, like Dr. Sarazawa... I didn't pronounce his name right. Dr. Sarazawa. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that name. But even he was not interesting in this movie. I mean, okay, it's mostly their character motivations, their development, which is just completely ridiculous. Take, for instance, Vera Farmiga's character is just, like, at one point I was laughing. I was like, are you serious? Because her character in this movie, right, she has a family, right? She has Kyle Chandler as the husband, and she has a daughter played by Millie Bobby Brown, and she also had a son, which she lost her son during the 2014 Godzilla battle. She thinks that these monsters are a sign of awakening where they'll take out half of the universe because humans are flawed because of pollution, you know, all the terrible stuff that they do. I'm just like, okay, this isn't Avengers Infinity War. This doesn't work with her character because her character seems like she's not really threatening, or at least in comparison to Thanos, she's not a threatening type character. They don't even go full villain on her because About half the movie, she's just like, oh wait, I think I made a little bit of a mistake. I think humans are great now. What the fuck?
Okay, so one thing I didn't explain very well about Vera Farmiga's character is that her motivations basically has nothing to do with her backstory. Because, I mean, you think it would make more sense that maybe since her son died from the Godzilla attack, maybe she wanted to use or to control the monsters to kill Godzilla? Like, you think that would make a lot of sense and she would kind of go through this revenge story, but no, instead she just kind of focuses on humanity? Okay, like, that just doesn't make any sense at all. And there's plenty of other things that didn't make any sense in this movie. I mean, I don't like picking out plot holes and nitpicks, but when you don't have a good story with good characters, it's kind of hard to notice some of the stuff that doesn't make sense. Like the fact that there's these guys that are around the Mothra egg, Mothra hatches, and all they got to stop Mothra is just stun guns. What's a stun gun gonna do with a giant kaiju? Huh?
Another thing I really don't like about most of the human characters is that they do so much exposition that at one point it just makes the movie so boring. I'm not kidding. Some parts literally bore the shit out of me just because they have to explain every single thing what the monsters are doing. And like I said, human characters do this all the time in Godzilla movies in general. But a lot of times, they just, if there's some sort of a new power or if they shooting lightning beams, they're like, oh no, they're shooting lightning beams, and then they just kind of keep watching the rest of the fight. This is just like, it's like if you're watching a commentary of all these characters. And this is another thing I don't like about the action scenes, is that when the monsters start fighting, they keep cutting away to the characters. And I'm like, no, 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 no!
This is Godzilla's world. We just live in it.
Damn right.
The dialogue is so bad. Like, it could... I honestly think the dialogue is comparable as, like, Matthew Broderick saying...
That's a lot of fish.
I mean, I swear, there's this guy who... I can't remember his name, but he's from Get Out. Amazing actor. But he was given some terrible lines where he was given, like... I guess he's mostly the comedic relief. And boy, was he not funny.
My God. Zilla.
Oh my Godzilla? Really? That made me cringe. That made me cringe so hard just listening to that line. Because, for one, it's not funny. It's not a good pun. Second, it's not a cool line either. The reason why I actually care about the human characters in this movie is because, one, it's got a good cast. Also, I do like most of the acting. I think everybody does a pretty good job for what they were given. You know, Millie Bobby Brown was good, Vera Farmiga's okay, Kyle Chandler, Ken Watanabe. Everybody does a decent job, nonetheless. Yeah, it's got a good cast, so it's kind of a waste of potential with a big cast like that. But second, most importantly, this movie was directed by Michael Dougherty. This is the same guy who directed Trick or Treat and Krampus. And I love Trick or Treat and Krampus. Both of those movies, I consider them like cult classics. And one of the reasons I love those movies is that the characters are interesting in those movies. Like with Trick or Treat, it's an anthology story, so it kind of focuses on different characters. You get to see different twists and turns. And then there's also Krampus, which is almost kind of like Gremlins, where, you know, your point of view is with a kid that you can relate with, where there's like a bunch of his family members are kind of being assholes, kind of like National Lampoon's Vacation, but taken as like a horror movie. And it's got heart with both of those movies, because all those characters are relatable. And the best part is, he wrote those movies. So not only did he direct this movie, but he also wrote this movie as well. And the characters are unrelatable. How? There was barely any characters I liked in this movie. It was either some of them are too ridiculous to sympathize with or even empathize, and then there's just some other characters who are just so boring. Like, the movie tries to make you sad that Sally Field dies in this movie. Even though in the last movie, she was just mostly just there as an assistant, and that's just kind of all she is. Even Dr. Sarasawa's kind of lame in this movie. I mean, like, he has an okay motivation where he looks at Godzilla as a god, because like I said, Godzilla's taken as like he's a titan that's been around for thousands of years. Not necessarily as like a having him as a metaphor representing the bombing of Hiroshima. This time we get to see him more as like, oh yeah, he's been a monster for like thousands of years, and then now he's back to fight monsters again. But sometimes I feel like they kind of hammer his character a little too pretentiously. Like some points, it kind of reminds me of Zack Snyder. It reminds me of Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, where they keep comparing Superman to Jesus, but they do it so forced. Like, a lot of the symbolisms is just so... It's not very subtle. And the worst part is, they kind of force that into your face. Like, there's a certain shot, which technically it's a cool shot, where Ghidorah's, like, on top of the mountains, and then there's, like, the cross. That was when, from there, I was just kind of like, okay, that's a little far-fetched, but whatever. And then this kind of adds to the dialogue, where everybody's just like, oh yeah, this means something. That means they're their god, our god or something. And I'm just like, stop. Just stop. You're people. This is something I can't relate to with these characters. Even as a Godzilla fan, like, of course I look up to Godzilla ever since I was a kid, but he's a giant monster, and so is the rest of the other monsters. They're just there to fight each other, and it's a very animalistic way where they're just kind of doing their nature. Like, forcing this whole pretentious religious aspect to the Godzilla monsters, the whole kaijus, is just kind of... It's kind of annoying. The score is fine. I don't really have too much to say about the music. I mean, I am pretty happy about bringing back the original Godzilla theme, and also Mothra's theme as well. But other than that, there's really not much I can say about the score. It just kind of feels like a generic, typical blockbuster movie score. I mean, again, with the exception of the Godzilla theme, which is kind of really cool because, you know, we're familiar with it, but everything else is just kind of completely forgettable. So, yeah, I mean, this movie pretty much has that kind of a problem. It's like, say, Game of Thrones Season 8, where most of my issues rely on the writing.
Okay, so maybe comparing Godzilla to Game of Thrones is kind of unfair because those shows have nothing to do with each other. I mean, I just like to express how disappointed I am with the season finale, which hopefully I like to do a video and cover on that one day. But what movie I think it's comparable to King of the Monsters is actually Batman vs. Superman, which I don't think it's as bad. I don't think it's as bad as Batman vs. Superman. I think that movie's way worse than King of the Monsters. But it does share a lot of the similar issues, such as having a really bleak, serious tone with a really dull story and boring characters. There's also gritty, dark action scenes. The movie is way too long. Lots of forced religious symbolisms and metaphors. Or even, you know what? Another thing I forgot to mention, I think this movie does a lot of sequel baiting, like Batman vs. Superman. And I personally don't like it when movie sequels try to reference future movies, because that just kind of tells me that the producers and the writers are not exactly confident in their own movie that it's gonna stand on its own. So they have to like get references to future movies to get people excited to watch the next movie. Like, oh look, there's King Kong. You know King Kong, because yeah, Godzilla and King Kong, they're gonna fight. Yeah, I don't like it when movies do that, and I don't think Godzilla King of the Monsters handled the sequel baiting well.
So I guess overall, I mean, I don't know how I would recommend this to people, because as a Godzilla fan, I could say this is kind of really easy, because of course Godzilla fans are going to see this movie. By chance, if you are a Godzilla fan, you've probably already seen this movie. Honestly, what I would say, like, I would buy this movie, like, because, you know, Godzilla fan, and of course, like a huge-ass collection of Godzilla movies. But, I mean, if I had to watch it again, the best way I would have to watch this movie is just to skip to the action scenes. Like, this is one of those Godzilla movies where the story is so boring where you just have to get into some of the other, you know, get to the fight scenes. Yeah, the only entertaining part I could really think of was just the ending, where Godzilla was going up against King Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan. Like, that was all really cool. But the rest of the movie, I was pretty dang bored for the most part. So, here's what I would say. I think it's fine to watch this movie as a Godzilla fan, like, maybe once in theaters. Then, of course, buying it would totally be a good option. And also, if you turn up the brightness of your TV, if you have a good TV and you buy it on Blu-ray, that's probably the best way to watch it. As a movie, I don't even know if I would recommend it. Because, I mean, I could easily see people who are not into Godzilla being bored out of their minds. Because even for me, looking at it as a movie, I got pretty bored from it as well. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, if you just want to see it for monster battles, I mean, maybe you could see it. I would recommend it if you're into that. But be aware, you're gonna have to have a lot of patience to get to those fight scenes. And if you're hoping to go into this movie expecting it to be at least decent or good or have an interesting story, you're not gonna get it. This makes me appreciate the Gareth Godzilla movie more, because at least with that movie, even though yes, it does kind of have the typical the human characters are not interesting, and of course they keep cutting away to the fights, which is teasing. At least what Gareth Edwards was trying to do, he was at least trying to go for like a Jaws. He was going for the Jaws aspect where he wanted to focus on the characters and less on the monsters. Which, you know, I'll give him credit. Some of the characters in that movie are interesting, like Dr. Sarasawa and even Bryan Cranston. Although he doesn't really, unfortunately, he doesn't last for that long. But at least there was something there. The first act and the third act got me really hooked into the movie. This movie, King of the Monsters, the third act was the only interesting thing. The rest of the movie is just boring. I mean, it's not bad. It's not a bad movie. I wouldn't say this is the worst thing I've seen in 2019. It's just really disappointing. Both as a guy who's into movies and also just as a guy who loves Godzilla. And don't give me this shit of, oh, just because you don't like this movie, you're not a real Godzilla fan. Like, bullshit. If you go to my YouTube channel that said Movie Maniac, I reviewed every single Godzilla movie. I know my Godzilla stuff. So, yeah, it's just kind of disappointing. I mean, I guess go see it if you're interested, but it's not one I would totally rewatch again and again and again. I don't know, even there are other Godzilla movies with King Ghidorah, Mothra, or Rodan that are better. Like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Or even GMK. So yeah, if I had to give this movie a rating, I would give it like a 5 out of 10. I mean, I can't say it's a 4 because there's some stuff I enjoy as a Godzilla fan, but even as a Godzilla fan, there wasn't too much I liked about it. Yeah, I guess a 5 sounds right. This doesn't make me, like, less excited for more Godzilla movies. I do want to see more Godzilla movies. In fact, you know, I'm still looking forward to that Godzilla Kong remake. It's just, make it decent, at least. Make it watchable. And also, just have the fight scenes take place during the day. So yeah, I guess that's really all I have to say. Like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram and my Letterboxd. Definitely follow me on those social media accounts. Till then, have an awesome day.